Other interesting cultural news, you have Tucker Carlson noting that apparently 1 in 5 mail-in ballots were fraudulent in the 2020 election, allegedly, I should say. Now, this was thanks to Tucker's ex-Twitter profile. And I was going to say, we'll play the video really quick here in a minute, but he says in text before, quote, about 1 in 5 mail-in ballots in the last election was fraudulent, handing Biden the presidency. We know this because people who committed the fraud admitted to it in a new poll. Thankfully, his voice is infinitely better than mine, so without too much further ado, go ahead and crank up this volume on the X Twitter app as well as mine over here. And like all good gentlemen always knows, he, of course, did suit up, as we always should.
It's now apparently a criminal offense, a felony in this country, to suggest the 2020 presidential campaign was not on the level. That crime appears to form the basis of one of Donald Trump's pending indictments. He's an election denier. But actually, it's worth denying the legitimacy of that election because it was not fair. Critical information was withheld from voters through censorship, and yes, by the government. That is a fact. It's also a fact that Mark Zuckerberg spent $400 million to control voting in various places around the country and affect the outcome. That's not legitimate. It was also conducted in many places through electronic voting machines, and no country should ever use electronic voting machines because fundamentally they cannot be trusted. Why would you trust it? But then there's the question of outright cheating, voter fraud. Was there voter fraud? Well, we know there was some, but was it widespread? That is a hard allegation to prove, though of course many people believe there was widespread fraud. Well, now it turns out we know for a fact that there was, and in fact it can be proven with a poll. Just ask people, did you personally commit voter fraud? Well, that has just been done. And the answer is a huge percentage of people asked in the poll admitted, yes, I committed voter fraud. It's remarkable. Justin Haskins is a senior fellow at the Heartland Institute. He joins us now with details. Justin, thanks so much for coming on. If you could just start by giving us the results, the shocking results of this poll, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So it was pretty straightforward. We asked people a series of questions. The first of which is, or one of the first questions was, did you vote in the 2020 election, and did you vote with an absentee ballot? And if they answered yes to both of those questions, then we asked a bunch of questions related to voter fraud. We didn't tell them that we were asking, did you commit voter fraud? We just asked them about various behaviors. So for example, we asked people, did you vote in a state where you're no longer a legal resident? That's a pretty straightforward question. If you're not a permanent resident of a state, you can't vote there. 17% of people, nearly 1 in 5, said yes, they did do that. We asked people, did you fill out a ballot for someone else on their behalf? That's also illegal. You're not allowed to fill out someone else's ballot. 21% of people said yes to that question. We asked if people forged the signature of a friend or family member on their behalf, with or without their permission. We actually put that in the poll question, and 17% of people said yes to that. So, all told, it's at least, and I say at least, 1 in 5 mail-in ballots involved some kind of fraudulent activity. But we didn't just stop there. We also asked everyone, whether they voted via mail-in ballot or not, so in-person voting as well, do you know anyone who personally, in your personal life, a friend, a family member, acquaintance, someone from work, has anyone ever admitted to you that they did one of these kinds of forms of voter fraud? And 10% and 11%, we asked 2 different questions on that, said yes, people admitted to me that they committed voter fraud.
Thanks a lot for watching us on X. There is a lot more to see, and you can find it on tuckercarlson.com.
Granted, my first question was, well, great, give us the data for the sample size for the poll, and also geographic range, and a lot of variables would be fascinating to dive into. But this went pretty viral, got 2.1 million views and 45,000 likes, which is quite a few to say at least, and a friendly reminder to click that like button if you have 1/1000th of a second. One of the first comments comes from Paul Zazupa. Ooh, we see our favorite leftist in the bottom as well. So we'll get some different perspectives here. Paul chimes in saying, quote, just think of how only a short time ago Twitter would have wrongly banned you for calling out how mail-in voting is fraudulent and leads to elections being stolen. Now the most popular journalist on earth can openly report on it. X is saving America by exposing all the truth, getting 1.4 thousand likes. Which, Yeah, and it's also fascinating to see just Google or Brave search the list of like the top, pretty much every country that have banned mail-in ballots. A lot of them have, and the number one reason they cite is because of the high propensity of risk for mail-in fraud. Again, I don't have any evidence on me. I don't have any evidence to actually show you to show, was there enough actual fraud to actually really overturn the 2020 election or really make a difference? That's always the debate. And to this date, we haven't seen the volume needed to actually say definitively. I mean, we've seen a lot of anecdotal, a couple of one-offs. You see the ballots being stuffed. You see the windows getting covered up. But I mean, at the end of the day, the real question is you need the volume of data to show that it would have actually made a big difference. Because there's been fraud since the dawn of time. Now, looks like one of our favorite leftists is also comments down here. Wow, not as many likes. He only got 9 likes. Now, Luke Zaleski, who, again, a little background on Luke Zaleski, I follow him because I like more opinions and echo chambers can get a little bit boring. And Luke is his pride, is one of his life achievements that he pins to the top of his profile on X Twitter, is talking about how he doesn't think young boys should play football. He also has a profile picture where he's wearing a V-neck. Pathetic. As we all know, true men of class always suit up. I mean, who has a profile picture of a V-neck? That's like a very casual date. Once you've known the girl for like 15 years, then I think it'd be appropriate perhaps to go on a date, maybe on like a home date. Like, you're not out in public, heaven forbid. You always want to suit up then. Like, if you have like a stay-at-home date kind of night, then I could see it being appropriate wearing a V-neck. But I partially digress. Now, Luke Zaleski says, quote, "You're living through the largest, longest continuing propaganda campaign and hostile political takeover attempt in the history of humanity, guys. And if you think it's unrelated to Elon being a right-wing," this is terrible grammar, I'll say it anyway, "a right-wing wingnut who thinks elections and vaccines are fake, you're not paying attention." Unquote. Granted, mostly mentally vacuous, but it did get 9 likes. People appreciate his perspective sometimes. And maybe that is grammatically correct, but does that sound just awkward? That phrase, right-wing wingnut? I understand what he's trying to say, but I mean, that just sounds awkward as hell. Now, going to the comments from Luke, I'm wondering if he got ratioed. Let's see here. One of the first ones comes from Stephen M.Y. saying, quote, "Name Obama's and Biden's economic policies that benefit America and Americans. Ask a liberal, stump a liberal." It's a good question to ask, but no one liked it. He didn't get a single like for that responses. Truth be told, none of these did, actually. Ooh, wait a minute. There's a disclaimer saying show additional replies, including those that may contain offensive content. Well, of course, click the bonus button and we see... I mean, it's not exactly polite cocktail conversations, but Steve simply said, "You're as dumb as they come." I mean, it's not nice to say, but I don't think it's overly offensive. They should censor that or pseudo-censor it. But nevertheless, back to the main comment section. You have Gunther Eagleman saying, quote, "Democrats have to cheat to win elections," getting 1.5 thousand likes. Democrat Media TM says, quote, "How Democrats literally think," and it's a quote, well, it's an alleged quote, just as liberals, quote, "If we could just jail Trump, get rid of MAGA in the Electoral College, stack the Supreme Court, ban voter ID, and censor free speech, we could save democracy," getting 753 likes. Which is hilarious how people on the left and the right, every election, they always complain about the Electoral College and saying they need to change it, but with the pendulum of politics, usually it does go back and forth between Republicans in power and Democrats in power. Although, I would also skeptically or pessimistically say, just more uniparty garbage. But nevertheless, scrolling down, you got Western Lensman saying, quote, "Mass mail-in voting is an essential pillar for Democrats' plan for entrenched single-party rule. It makes election fraud like what it is described here nearly impossible to prove." Getting 592 likes. Marjorie Taylor Greene press release parody account says, quote, "We need to ban mail-in ballots. Democrats use it to cheat in every election." Unquote, getting 1.4 thousand likes. Patriot 911 says, "The government really is working against its own people." It says, U.S. Capitol Code of Conduct. It has a Palestinian protester. That is allowed. You have the Democrat, I forget what name was, that morally depraved Democrat politician who was in office filming adult content. That's allowed. You also have, what was that name? Another Democrat who pulled a fire alarm to prevent a vote. That was allowed. Then you have a picture of a MAGA hat gentleman praying and says, "Our Father who art in heaven," and that's considered terrorism. I got 850 likes, which is quite sad when you think about it, because people were jailed just for praying. Or in some cases, they were jailed just for walking around the building, escorted by police. Of course, there are a couple about to, not to swear, but a couple of morally, mentally vacuous people who got violent. Obviously, we should have been, and they were. I was going to say they should have been prosecuted. They were prosecuted. Now, going back to other comments, you have Big Fish saying, quote, I was at TCF in Detroit, and 35% of all the ballots were not in the official voter roll. They kicked me out, citing pandemic when I raised objections. People do not believe me when I mention this. It's hard to believe, getting 600 likes. Let's see here. This is how you save elections, according to Libercat Media TM. It says, every election will be stolen until we fix the problem. Paper ballots, no machines ID, signature verification, vote in person, proof of life, sign/ID, absentee, and mail in. Got 705 likes. Let's see. A couple videos of people on the street talking about Trump being better than Biden. Let's see. Righteous Crusader says, quote, everyone knows Biden cheated. Obama won 893 Democrat counties, while Biden only won 477 counties, yet somehow he got 8 million more votes. Biden also lost 19 of 20 bellwether counties that miraculously still won. It was a stolen election, and we're all suffering the consequences, end quote, getting 664 likes. Let's see, a couple memes. What is this? Aaron K says, they don't even care who knows anymore. They get away with anything they want to. And there's a picture of Biden and Kamala, and the text says, quote, a 78-year-old two-timer loser campaigns from his basement, picks the most unpopular vice president in modern history, receives the most votes of any candidate in history at 4 a.m. Confirmed in the middle of the night, an empty inauguration, 20,000 troops to protect him, and no one is allowed to question any part of it. Unquote, getting 266 likes. Though, fact check, old souls and old people do get up pretty early. I am usually up by about 4 a.m. every day, and who knows, maybe that's a good time to vote. I mean, I usually use it to work out and read, but nevertheless. Scrolling down. Dave Benner, nemesis of neocons, says, quote, if you want to get voter ID and paper ballots, this is the only marketing campaign that will work. It says, it's a little picture that says, don't let Trump cheat, demand voter IDs and paper ballots. And it's a bunch of multicultural people all smiling, holding IDs. They got 750 likes. Carolina says, quote, there's no doubt that there's fraud and they're hiding anymore, but this is a picture of Trump. It says, Trump will be the first president to win 3 presidential elections and serve 2 presidential terms, getting 423 likes. Now, fun fact of the day, well, I think this has already been taught ad nauseum for some folks throughout the years, but if Trump does win, he'll be the second president in history to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, the only other one being Grover Cleveland, and I forget the year, that it eludes me at the moment, but that would be a statistical outlier if Trump is to win. Or, let's see here. Vince Langman says, quote, imagine believing this senile old bastard got 81 million illegal votes. Got 573 likes. Now, that being said, there's a couple of people who really love Biden and what he's done. Realistically, I think a lot of people just overwhelmingly vote ballot, or they vote party line. It's like, a lot of my friends who are Democrats, it doesn't matter who's actually on the ballot, they'll just vote for the party. And there are a couple of people in the Republican Party do the same thing. As long as there's an R by that name, they'll vote for him. And for Democrats, as long as there's a D by that name, they'll vote for him. And truth be told, I'm not really sure how much Biden is doing these days. I mean, I think in terms of like the daily activity and these policies and what's going on, I think that's kind of his team more these days, don't you? But as always, let me know in the comments. It'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment, or sharing the video is a great way to give me some additional feedback, as well as help grow the channel. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.